Hello, hello. Today we are going to focus on the minor arcana suit of cups. So we're going to start with, these are the Golden Universal Tarot. So we're going from the Ace of Cups all the way through the King of Cups. So this particular deck is really metallic. It's really beautiful. It has a lot of the traditional, like universal weight, rider weight sort of imagery, which is really good, especially when you're first starting out, or if you just need to, get in there and just start doing the reading without having to really pick apart something new. The difference, however, aside from the pretty metallics that I've seen with this particular deck, is the fact that a lot of the people in here, like the kings, for example, they always look a little more disgruntled than they do in the other decks. And maybe that's just something that I'm noticing, but it's just a thing that's there. So typically, when we're looking at the cups, this particular suit deals with the emotions and corresponds to the element of water. So keep that in mind as we go through the cards. When you're looking at this and you're kind of tying it into the reading that you are talking about, this is going to be matters of the heart, how you feel about something, and they're going to correspond strongly to the suit of swords, which is what we'll get into in one of the future videos. So the swords have everything to do with the mental plane and the element of air. So if you can kind of keep that in mind, that those two things, the mental plane and the emotional plane, are going to intersect in some ways, but in many ways, when you're looking at the cards, you can kind of pull apart this difference of, what somebody might be feeling versus what they're thinking. And sometimes those things align, and sometimes the truth may be hidden, and you feel one way, but you're thinking another, and they're displaying something completely different. So anyway, just something to keep in mind. So this, we have the Ace of Cups. Now, obviously, you see this giant hand. It looks like destiny or fate or something super important. You see it obviously is the number one. You've got the dove coming down, this giant golden cup. Everything's great, and it is. So if you think about this as like your cup overfloweth in respect to the heart and love, and this is a huge, huge, huge sort of gift. And I think that, anybody who gets this card, whatever it's around, feels incredibly good about it. This is a pretty big deal. It's not just like a willy-nilly, like, oh, I'm so happy I got that present, or something like that. This is like a very deep, deep, overwhelming sort of sense of pleasure in the emotional sense. So moving into the two. So this one, these two people are not necessarily lovers, but they're not necessarily not. What you see is a very even give and take, an even exchange of emotions, seeing eye to eye. They are both looking directly at each other's face. Now, I know this isn't the actual medical symbol. I think that's actually a caduceus, which is a whole other topic of symbolism. But in any case, just off the bat, even though it's not technically correct, I do see that and often think of something medical when I'm doing a spread and that comes up. You see Leo here, that's the lion. So you see a lot of strength in this partnership. And you can see this partnership as many different things. And again, like most cards and most readings, you're going to look at this in reference to what are we talking about? What's the question? Who are you reading for? Is it yourself? And what are the corresponding cards around it that it might be connected to? Okay, so moving on to number 3. Now, all right, number 3. This is a really, really fun celebratory one. You can see this as friendships, sisters, acquaintances, whatever the case may be. You see a lot of abundance here. Some decks will have this where you see like pumpkins and things at the bottom, and sometimes that can give you a sense of timing. Right now, though, just in general, it's always going to have 3 women raising their cups to the air, lots of fruit around them in some sort. So it's very good. It's very positive. It's very celebratory. And the key here with this one is celebration. There's a lot of joy, a lot of connection specifically. And oftentimes I do see this very specifically with females who are really connected and need to reconnect. So there you have it. Now the 4 is very quite different. So the 4 of Cups, this person is being handed something and she's just kind of like, nah, over it, bored, really not wanting it at all. None of these cups are dumped over. This person just doesn't really want to receive what's being offered or given. So a lot of times you see this when people are just in absolute burnout, and again, connect it to what it's around. So, but this is typically a very negative emotional state also. And I see this come up a lot of times, not only with, refusing what's being given to you or offered, but also not seeing the opportunity and not seeing that there is something good here, and something positive. So a lot of times I think it's just really a matter of mindset. And again, that's where you're going to look into the swords and see what is coming up. And if there's a lot of pentacles around this, you may see that this person is in need of changing jobs desperately. So see what happens. Now, on the topic of negative emotions and depression, the 5 of Cups, definitely a lot of sorrow, which you can see by this person's stance, by the symbolism in the robe that he's wearing, and the cups being spilled over here. One thing that is interesting about this card is everything else around him that he doesn't see. So obviously this person is really sad and in grief or mourning, horribly depressed, something like that. So what's going on here behind him though? So he's looking at this. This is where his heart and his mind and his emotional state is, but he doesn't see what's just behind him. There's also this bridge. Now I think of that, the bridge over troubled waters. So when you think about that, that's a stone bridge. A stone is usually symbolic of something very, very stable. Same thing with a castle here. So just over that emotional water, that he's really trying not to drown in is a lot of positive stability, emotional stability, but he's not seeing it because right now this is where he is. And he just has to get to the other side of that. So there you're going to look for, what's really going on in this, not rushing along a healing process, but also, being able to find a way to move through it and get to the other side. And it does look barren, but again, you got to look at the tinted glasses that one has on also. So that is some of the more negative ones. This one, however, we have our 6 of Cups. 6 of Cups is very different. 6 of Cups is very happy. 6 of Cups is nostalgia, really positive memories, making new memories that are going to last and be really positive. You see these 2 people in a wonderful exchange. They know each other. They already love each other. This could be family, friends, lovers, old classmates, you name it. But nostalgia is the main thing with this card, and positive memories. So the other thing that you might notice with this, though, is a lot of the things in the background. You have the staircase going up, and there's definitely that trajectory, that massive angle there. You've got all these flowers in bloom. That could give you another timing. And if not, that certainly does symbolize a lot of abundant emotions. And depending on what flowers you see, and if you know flower symbolism, you might be able to extract some things from there too. So, moving on to number 7. Not as bad as it looks. It does look a little chaotic, and honestly, it does feel that way when you're in it. So think of this as too many options and not knowing which one to pick. So in a lot of ways, this is like your mind just going with just a ton of different things. You can't sleep. It's a little bit of chaos, and you don't know, what else to call it other than overwhelm, and then what to pick. So this is about really extracting options and figuring out the best option to take in the particular situation that this is coming up against. So it's not necessarily bad, it's not necessarily good, but there's usually a lot of anxiety with this one. Okay, so 8. If you study numerology, 8 is usually abundance. And indeed, this one is. So the 8 of Cups has to do with moving forward and moving on from a situation into a better one. And you see in the background, you have the 2 mountains, you have the path between the mountains, and that's pretty much where he's headed. So this is usually pretty good. But it does usually mean that there was a negative situation that one is moving away from. So crappy in the present and past, positive on the way out. So that's good. Now, number 9. Now, this is probably in the Old World decks with the Old World artwork and symbolism. This is like the only chubby person in there, and you got to see that as like the happy Buddha. Look how smiley he is. And I see that as like, the tubby Buddhas symbolize a lot of abundance, and so does he. And he's just and again, I'm going to reiterate here, like, not all Buddhas and their symbolism are tubby, but I'm just speaking of the one, so don't come for me. But this guy is really happy. He's full of joy. He's full of emotional abundance. There's really not a lot of sacrifice. There's just satisfaction. He's just happy. He's just happy. So, abundant happiness. That's the 9 of Cups. And that's definitely one you want to get. As is this one. So, 10 of Cups. 10 of Cups is almost always going to be a rainbow in the sky with kids playing and 2 people in an embrace. No matter what deck you get, it's almost certain, if they follow any of the traditional symbolism, this is going to be some things, some elements that are in there. So this is obviously happy family, security, abundance. They are just emotionally connected. They have each other, and I think that's a big deal too. So especially if you're looking at people in a marriage, or if they're going to have kids, or if they're going to have a life together, things like that, you want to see this kind of thing. And if somebody's maybe going back home, if they've moved away, things like that, this will come up. So when you're looking at relationships, however, and you're having somebody or yourself and you're questioning that, and this comes up, it doesn't necessarily always mean exactly that. Again, you got to pay attention to the placement. So if this comes up where, for example, you're looking at what somebody wants, that's very different from what they're going to get. Sometimes those things align, sometimes they don't. So just best to be mindful of things like that. So, all right, we're getting into the court card. So we've got the page. Usually when I see this, it's a young man or young woman, and sometimes a youth, like a budding youth, that's like a bit androgynous, but usually always this card represents being asked out on a date. So that's always nice. Okay. So you've got dates and then you've got engagements. It's not always that though. So the Knight of Cups also represents an emotional offering, like an emotional gift. Something stable, something bigger. So something that's going to make you more happy than just a passing giggle or a passing smile. You know, this is like a lot more long haul, I should say. Whatever that might be. We've got the waterfall there. That's good to know to symbolism too. So we have Queen of Cups. So if you want to think about somebody that is probably the biggest heart in the tarot deck, it's going to be her. The Queen of Cups is full of heart. She's full of emotion. She's full of love, nurturing, kind of like motherhood, but not necessarily a mother. But she could be. And it's just somebody that you feel really is a very loving soul. And there she is. So same thing with, usually when they don't look so grumpy, the King of Cups. So you see the water element also not only in the actual cards, but in the thrones as well, with the shell shapes. So you could even look at this as like a Pisces. You could look at this as, any other water sign. But usually when I see the King of Cups come up, he is always a really gentle person. He's a great listener, very supportive, somebody that you really kind of want to go to. And if you're looking for a therapist, you'd love to have this card come up. So, excuse me. I think that we're going to end this on a positive note with him, and I will see you in the next round where we will go through the Suit of Wands. Bye-bye.